The Galactic Empire had ruled the stars for thousands of years. Its banners shone on 1,000 worlds, and its fleets moved like silver storms through the void. For the council that sat in the shining capital, every new race was nothing more than another name added to the endless list of subjects. Some races resisted, but none had lasted for long. Pride made the empire strong. Pride also made it blind. When the first reports came, no one believed them. A small scout vessel, broken and barely functioning, had returned to the border world of Calith Prime. Its captain, an old reptilian officer with half his face burned, stepped out onto the landing bay and fell to the floor. He spoke only one word before dying: humans. The word carried no weight in the Grand Council chamber. The lords and admirals laughed. Another primitive, they said. Another fragile species playing war before they are crushed. Yet the reports kept arriving. Merchant convoys whispered of strange ships moving in the shadows. Patrols went missing, and in the silence between stars, rumors spread faster than light. One survivor told a story that no one wanted to hear. He had been captured during a skirmish near the Vega Rim. The humans, he said, did not kill quickly. They studied their enemies. They learned every weakness. They did not fight like soldiers of the Empire, bound by honor and formation. They fought like predators, unpredictable and merciless. The council laughed again. Predators? In fragile bodies of flesh and bone? Their amusement filled the chamber, but there was unease in the air, a shadow no light could remove. On the border stations, officers grew restless. One young commander named Vayar tried to send urgent messages back to the capital. He had seen what humans did with only 3 ships against his fleet of 12. They had hidden in asteroid fields, striking from the dark. They had boarded ships fighting hand-to-hand in narrow corridors, using nothing but improvised weapons and their bare strength. His soldiers had panicked. His fleet had scattered. He had returned with only 1 ship still intact. But when his words reached the council, they silenced him. He was told to rest, to recover from delusions of war. The Empire did not bend to fear. Still, whispers grew louder. Soldiers stationed on border planets told of nightmares where human voices echoed in the dark. Civilians whispered about human captives who refused to kneel, even when beaten. The guards said the humans looked them in the eyes without fear, and sometimes even smiled. One governor demanded more fleets for defense. The council refused. We will not waste ships on shadows, they said. To them, humans were nothing but a story meant to scare children. But out in the void, the first warning was already growing. Far beyond the borders, a lone human warship waited in silence. It did not broadcast signals, it did not announce its presence. Its crew watched and studied. They did not seek glory nor conquest. They sought survival, and survival had shaped them into something far more dangerous. Inside the warship, the captain stood before a star map filled with red markers. Each red light was an Empire world. His voice was calm, his eyes cold. They do not listen. They do not learn. Then they will burn. Back in the Empire capital, the council gathered once more in their towering chamber. They raised their voices in debate, but their laughter had grown thinner. One of the elder counselors, old enough to remember the fall of another empire long ago, raised a hand. His voice trembled. I have seen this before. I have seen the danger of ignoring small fires. They become storms. The chamber grew silent, but only for a moment. Pride returned like a shield. No storm can reach us, another declared. We are eternal. We are the Empire. And so the first warning was buried under arrogance. Orders were given and the galaxy moved on as if nothing had changed. But in the dark between stars, something had already changed. A convoy near the Vega Rim was found drifting. Every ship was broken, engines burned, hulls torn. There were no bodies, only silence. The Empire patrols approached with care, searching for answers. On one of the ships, a single message was burned into the metal walls carved by human hands. We warned you. Fear spread like fire. The border commanders begged for reinforcements. The council still refused. One incident, they said. One enemy strike. They will pay when we send the fleet. The officers on the borders knew better. They looked into the night sky and felt the weight of something coming closer. Something that did not fight by rules, did not seek glory, did not know fear. The humans had given their first warning, and the Empire had ignored it. Far away, the human fleet prepared to move again. The captain whispered to his crew, "They think we are weak." They think we are prey. Let them believe. When the time comes, they will learn what it means to face humanity. The stars outside were silent, but the silence was heavy, the kind of silence that comes before thunder. And so the stage was set. The Empire stood tall, proud, and blind. The humans waited in the dark, patient and merciless. The first warning had been spoken. Soon the galaxy would understand it. The Council of the Galactic Empire could no longer ignore the whispers. Too many patrols had vanished. Too many wrecks had been found drifting in the cold emptiness. Every fragment of metal told the same story. Humans were not afraid. At last, the Empire decided to teach this young species a lesson. A fleet of 30 warships, sleek and glowing with energy, was sent to the Vega Rim. The admirals called it a small mission, barely worth the cost of fuel. In their minds, the humans would be crushed in one decisive strike, and the border would be calm again. Commander Yorvak led the fleet. He was proud like all his people, and he trusted in numbers, weapons, and centuries of victory. Before departure, he told his soldiers, "We face a primitive species. Fragile bones, soft skin, and weak technology. We will return before the sun set twice." But in the shadows of space, the humans were already waiting. The first encounter was not a battle. It was a test. The humans allowed the Empire fleet to enter an asteroid belt, guiding them with false signals. The asteroids were silent, drifting, harmless, or so the Empire thought. Then the rocks moved. Explosions tore the fleet's formation apart. Mines hidden on the surface of asteroids exploded one after another. Empire ships spun out of control, shields failing under the sudden storm. "Hold formation," Yorvak roared. But there was no formation left. The humans had already broken it. From the darkness, human ships emerged, not sleek, not shining, but built for survival. Their armor was scarred, their weapons patched, but they moved with purpose. They fired short, sharp bursts targeting engines and weapons, not shields. Empire ships burned before they even understood the attack. Panic spread through the Empire crews. They had never fought enemies like this. Most battles were clean, with rules, with patterns. But the humans fought like storms, wild and unpredictable. One Empire ship was boarded. Cameras showed humans cutting through the airlock with torches. They did not wear polished armor. They wore patched suits carrying rifles, blades, even improvised tools. They swarmed the corridors with terrifying speed. Alien soldiers fired plasma shots, but the humans kept advancing. Some fell, but the rest pushed forward, using the fallen as shields. They fought as if death meant nothing. Yorvak watched the feat in horror. "They are animals," he whispered. But deep inside, he knew the truth. They were not animals. They were something worse. They were survivors. Hours turned into a blur of fire and screams. The Empire's superior weapons should have guaranteed victory, but every strategy was broken by human unpredictability. Where the Empire expected retreat, the humans charged. Where the Empire expected surrender, the humans resisted until the last breath. By the time the battle ended, only 12 Empire ships remained, limping back toward safe space. 17 had been destroyed, their crews lost. One ship drifted for days before finally exploding from within. The last message received was chilling, the crew screaming as human soldiers advanced through every deck. Yorvak returned, his pride shattered. His armor was scorched, his voice hollow. When he stood before the council, he could not raise his eyes. "We underestimated them," he said. "They fight without fear. They do not break. They do not surrender. If we continue this path, we will lose." The council did not listen. They heard only what they wanted to hear. "You lost because you were careless," they told him. "Because you lacked discipline." Yorvak clenched his fists. He wanted to scream, to make them see. But he knew it was useless. The council was deaf to truth. Their pride was greater than their wisdom. Yet the soldiers on the border knew better. Survivors of the battle spoke in whispers, their voices shaking. "They looked at us like hunters," one said. "Like we were prey." Even when I aimed my weapon at him, he smiled. Fear spread through the lower ranks. The officers tried to crush it, but fear has a way of seeping into every shadow. The soldiers began to dream of human eyes, human footsteps echoing in the dark. Some refused to sleep near windows, afraid they would see human ships drifting outside. And still the council laughed. They called the humans a nuisance. They said the next fleet would finish the job. But outside the grand capital, the stars told a different story. In the darkness of the Vega Rim, human ships moved silently, repairing their scars. Inside the command ship, The captain studied every record of the battle. He pointed to the map filled with enemy symbols. His words were cold, but his crew nodded in silence. They sent 30 ships, he said. We destroyed more than half. They will send more. We will be ready. Let them come. For the humans, this was not a war of glory. It was survival. And in survival, they were unmatched. The Empire had given its first test of fire. And in that fire, they had seen only a glimpse of what humanity was capable of. But the true storm had not yet begun. The Empire tried to hide the truth. The loss of 17 ships at the Vega Rim was called an accident. The Council spread lies across the networks, saying a starstorm had destroyed the fleet, not humans. But rumors are like shadows. They cannot be controlled. On border planets, soldiers whispered the truth. They had seen the wrecks. They had seen the scorch marks where human weapons had torn through steel. They had seen the faces of survivors who trembled when they spoke the word human. In taverns, merchants told stories of trade routes gone silent. Convoys that never returned. Messages cut off mid-sentence. Each time the last word was the same. Humans. Fear began to rise, not among the lords in their shining halls, but among the common soldiers and the workers who lived closest to the edge of space. They felt it in their bones. Something was coming. Something the Council could not stop. On the capital world, the Council still mocked the idea. They called humans weak. They said the loss at Vega Rim was only a fluke. But when the scientists spoke, the chamber grew quiet. A group of researchers had studied captured human prisoners. Their report was chilling. Their biology is strange, one scientist said. They can survive wounds that would kill us. Their bodies push past pain. Their minds are shaped for conflict. When faced with death, they do not surrender. They adapt. They become stronger. One counselor laughed. You speak as if they are gods. The scientist's eyes were grim. No, they are not gods. They are worse. They are survivors. And survivors are the most dangerous enemy of all. The words echoed, but the council brushed them aside. Pride once again silenced fear. But out on the borders, commanders could no longer deny reality. Entire fleets were sent to hunt the humans, but each time only fragments returned. Some ships drifted back with no crew, as if taken in silence. Others sent broken signals, screams cut short. One commander, Admiral Kareth, stood before his officers after another failed campaign. His eyes were bloodshot, his voice sharp. We face a species that does not fight like us. We expect them to flee, but they charge. We expect them to defend, but they attack. Every tactic we use, they twist against us. They do not fight for empire, they fight for survival, and survival makes them unstoppable. The younger officers shifted uncomfortably. They had been raised to believe the empire was eternal. Now that faith cracked with every lost ship. Among civilians, fear became something deeper. Some began to call the humans the silent storm. They said human ships moved like ghosts, striking without warning and leaving only ruins. Stories grew wild, that humans drank the blood of enemies, that they whispered death into the ears of soldiers before killing them, that they could not die at all. The truth was simpler, yet more terrifying. Humans simply refused to stop. On the mining colony of Dranar, a garrison of 2,000 soldiers faced an attack by only 100 humans. The Empire expected an easy victory, but the battle lasted 3 nights, and when it ended, the colony burned. The garrison was gone. The few survivors said the humans fought in silence, moving through tunnels like shadows. They never saw them until it was too late. The report reached the capital, and once again the council dismissed it. Exaggeration, they said. No 100 could defeat thousands. But in the border worlds, the name human had already become a curse. Children were told to sleep, or the humans will come. Soldiers sharpened their blades at night, hands shaking. Even the Empire's spies began to report strange things. On one intercepted human broadcast, a single line repeated again and again. We warned you. The fear spread even to the admirals. One night, Admiral Jorvak, who had led the first fleet to disaster, was found in his chambers staring at the stars. When asked what haunted him, he whispered, their eyes. You do not understand. When you fight them, they look at you as if they already know how you will die, and maybe they do. Still, the council did nothing. They spoke of strength, of glory, of victory. But deep inside, even they began to feel unease. They had ignored the first warning. They had dismissed the test of fire. Now the fear itself was rising, creeping through the cracks of their pride. And far away in the hidden dark, the humans prepared their next strike. Their captain stood over maps filled with empire worlds, their faces cold and patient. They did not rush. They did not boast. They knew fear was their weapon as much as fire. "Let them laugh," one human officer said. "Let them deny. The more they ignore us, the stronger the fall will be." The captain nodded. "We will not stop until they understand. This galaxy does not belong to empires. It belongs to survivors." In the silent dark, the human ships moved again. The storm was growing. The Empire had ignored every warning. Now fear itself was their new enemy, and fear was winning. The fear had spread across the stars like a silent disease, but the Empire still refused to see it. Pride had become their shield, and that shield was cracking. When the humans struck again, they did not come for small convoys or border outposts. They came for worlds. The attack began on the mining planet Talvros. It was a place with towers of metal, endless drills pulling resources from the crust, and a garrison of 10,000 Empire soldiers. The governor believed no enemy could break it. But one night the skies turned red. Human ships appeared without warning, cutting through the atmosphere. They did not bombard from orbit as the Empire always did. They landed. They fought in the streets. They moved through shadows, through smoke, through fire. Every soldier who faced them expected a clean war, but instead they faced chaos. The governor sent desperate messages to the council. "They are here. They fight like demons. Reinforcements now." But no reinforcements came. By the time the council even argued over the request, Talvros was gone. Its towers lay in ruins. The last broadcast showed a human flag rising over the smoldering city. The Empire sent a larger fleet, hundreds of ships to strike back. But again, the humans did not fight as expected. Instead of meeting the fleet in battle, they scattered it. Small human ships broke the formation, striking at fuel lines, supply ships, command vessels. Without fuel, Empire ships drifted helplessly. Without orders, soldiers panicked. Entire fleets disappeared in silence. Some were destroyed. Some were captured. Some were abandoned, their crews missing, their ships floating like corpses in the dark. In the council chamber, panic finally broke through arrogance. Voices rose in anger. Some demanded negotiation, others demanded total war. But while they argued, worlds were burning. On the planet Renal, refugees flooded the docks. Mothers carried children. Soldiers shouted orders that no one obeyed. The sky above glowed with fire as human ships descended. The refugees screamed when they saw the enemy soldiers. Humans with scarred armor, eyes sharp, moving with the calm of predators. They did not shout or boast. They simply advanced one step at a time as if nothing could stop them. "Why do they not fear us?" one soldier cried as he fired into the advancing wave. But the answer was already clear. Humans did not fear death. Death feared them. Admiral Kareth tried to warn the council. He stood before them, uniform torn, his face gaunt from too many battles. "We are collapsing," he said. "Every fleet we send is broken. Every world we defend falls. They are not like us. They do not stop. They do not rest. If we do not change, we will be destroyed." The council shouted him down. "Lies, fear. You are weak." But Kareth knew the truth. He had seen humans fight until their bodies bled dry. He had seen them crawl across burning decks just to pull another enemy down with them. He had seen them laugh in the face of defeat. Still, the Empire clung to its pride. They gathered the largest fleet in history, 1,000 ships, and sent it to crush the humans once and for all. The fleet never returned. At first, there was silence. Then fragments of messages trickled back. Ships burning, captains screaming, engines failing. One final broadcast carried across the stars. "They are everywhere. They are..." The signal ended in static. When news spread, fear turned into chaos. Border planets declared independence. Governors abandoned their posts. Soldiers deserted their armies. Entire populations fled into the void, hoping to escape the storm. The collapse had begun. In the capital, riots erupted. Civilians shouted in the streets, demanding protection. Soldiers were forced to fire on their own people to keep order. The great towers of the city trembled as panic took root in every heart. And through it all, the humans advanced. Their fleets moved like shadows, appearing where least expected. Their armies struck with merciless precision. They left warnings burned into walls, carved into ruins. "We warned you." The council finally began to understand, but it was too late. They had ignored the first warning. They had dismissed the test of fire. They had denied the rising fear. Now the collapse had come and nothing could stop it. Far away in the heart of the human fleet, the captain stood over his map once more. His crew watched in silence as more red lights, the Empire's worlds, were marked for destruction. They thought themselves eternal, the captain said quietly. Now they will learn the truth. Nothing lasts forever. Not empires. Not pride. Only survival. The crew nodded. Their faces were cold, but their eyes burned with fire. They were not fighting for glory or conquest. They were fighting because they had no other choice, and that made them unstoppable. The Empire's collapse was not loud at first. It was slow, a crack in the wall, a whisper in the dark. But soon it became a storm, and that storm had only one name: humanity. The Empire's collapse was no longer a whisper. It was a scream that echoed through every world, every fleet, every broken promise of safety. The Grand Council sat in their golden chamber, but the walls no longer shone with pride. Outside, riots burned. Soldiers fought civilians in the streets. The banners of the Empire, once untouchable, were being torn down by desperate hands. At last, the Council gave in. They sent envoys to the humans, carrying white flags and desperate words of peace. For the first time in centuries, the Empire bent its knee, but no reply came. The human fleets continued to move forward, silent and merciless. Every envoy ship vanished in the void, never returning. Some were found later drifting empty, a single message carved into their hulls. Too late. Inside the council chamber, fear grew heavy. Voices rose in panic. We must surrender everything. Give them the worlds, the mines, the fleets. Save what we can. But others shouted back, no, we are still the Empire. We cannot crawl like insects before these creatures. The arguments turned to chaos, but all of them knew the truth. Their pride had destroyed them. They had ignored the warnings until the storm was already inside their walls. In the outer systems, the last great defense was shattered. The 1,000 ships that had been their final hope burned in the dark. Survivors spoke of human tactics that defied reason. Entire wings of Empire fighters lured into traps. Command ships boarded and taken. Explosives planted in fuel tanks. No single strategy repeated, always new, always deadly. They are not fighting a war, one survivor gasped before dying. They are teaching us a lesson. On the once proud world of Drakkar, where towers of crystal touched the sky, the humans landed. They did not come with speeches. They did not come with mercy. They came with silence. Street by street they advanced. Soldiers tried to hold the gates, but the gates fell. Civilians screamed, but the screams were drowned in fire. At the center of the city, the governor raised a white flag, only to fall with an arrow through his chest. There would be no mercy. In the capital, Admiral Kareth, one of the last who had spoken truth, stood at the balcony as human ships appeared in the sky. His voice was heavy with sorrow. I warned them. I told them. But they laughed. Now look. Now they see. The people in the streets looked up as fire rained down. Panic turned to despair. The mighty capital, heart of the Empire, burned as easily as any border outpost. Inside the council chamber, silence finally fell. The lords who had once mocked and laughed now trembled. One by one, they realized there would be no negotiation, no surrender. The humans had given them every chance. They had carved their warnings into metal and blood. And every time the Empire had ignored them. Now it was too late. The doors of the council chamber burst open. Human soldiers entered, scarred armor, cold eyes, weapons steady. The counselors rose in fear, but none spoke. They looked into those human eyes, and at last they understood. The humans did not see rulers. They saw prey. One by one, the counselors fell silent. The leader of the council, once proud and loud, lowered his head and whispered, "We should have listened." The human commander stepped forward. His voice was quiet, almost calm, but it carried the weight of every world burned, every ship destroyed. We warned you. And with those words, the age of the Galactic Empire ended. In the silence that followed, the galaxy itself seemed to hold its breath. The stars that had once belonged to the Empire now belonged to the storm. And that storm had a name: humanity. They had been mocked as weak. They had been dismissed as fragile. But in the end, it was not strength of body or fleets that won the war. It was their refusal to break, their hunger to survive, their endless will to fight even when all seemed lost. The Empire had ignored every warning, and when the realization finally came, it was far too late.